What's the craziest thing you've seen at a graduation? High school graduation. Our principal was handing out diplomas on a large stage. He had just handed one of the graduates a diploma, which was rolled up. As the graduating student was about to leave the stage, he unrolled the diploma, turned around, walked back to the principal, and started yelling at the principal. We had been told prior to the graduation that all outstanding fees would need to be paid before we could receive our diplomas. It turns out the student owed a few dollars in labor. A valedictorian got on stage and trauma-dumped her event of middle school friends ditching her for homecoming, then continued to make the entire speech about how friends are important, shape your whole lives, etc. She finally finished with, "I didn't need them anyway, I'm valedictorian, and they're losers who are going to community college." We were all as disgusted as we were bored. This was a 25-minute speech that every single one of the audience was side-eyeing the superintendent and principal. A food crazy story. During my college graduation, the dean stopped at a particular graduate. He explained that staff, such as maintenance/janitorial, were allowed to take one free class a semester. Over the years he had been on campus, many have finished out their degrees, but this next graduate had started from scratch and taken one class a semester for 16 years while working as staff, and today is graduating with high honors. He then said, "On behalf of all faculty and staff, we are so proud of her." Graduated from a Catholic high school in 1997. Graduating class was about 200 boys. It was an all-male high school. Each one of us was supposed to go up, grab our diploma, and then shake the hand of the priest that ran the school. Also, each one of us had a beer pop-top in our hands. When we went to shake his hand, we handed him the pop-top. You could see him get madder and madder as his pockets filled up with beer caps, but he was trying not to make a scene in front of the parents. I saw one of my students' dad tell him that now that he had his diploma, he couldn't live at the house with him anymore.
He kicked him out that day.
High school graduation, 1974, outside, in our football stadium. The vice principal's daughter, who was graduating and had been drinking, hiked up her gown and peed on the field. Someone tried a backflip, or something like that, at Auburn Engineering graduation and completely busted their ass. Within minutes the fail was on social media. Obviously, in restricted clothing like a gown, not a great idea. Not overly crazy, but this young Arab guy, when they called his name, he ran and backflipped his way onto the stage, landed it, and then cheered his own name while raising his arms. Some of the crowd cheered, but the dean of the university, who was waiting to give him the degree, just rolled her eyes. I was 9 years old back in the 70s when my sister, who was 10 years older than me, was graduating high school. And clear a day, I could still picture the guy in the front row who was her good friend rips off his robe and ran naked across the field with policemen chasing behind him. Everybody was hooping and hollering. Why doesn't anyone streak anymore? It's not like they're gonna throw the book at you. Or will they? Thinking face. At my grad school commencement, one guy walked the stage, shook the dean's hand, then immediately pulled out a full baby bottle from under his gown and started drinking from it. Everyone thought it was some weird joke until his entire friend group in the audience started cheering and holding up matching baby bottles too. The dean looked completely dead inside. Then, while the next student was walking, the dude somehow tripped going down the stairs, and the bottle went flying across the stage. Girl did a cartwheel in long dress and heels. Yep, fell flat on her face. Me actually getting a diploma. Nothing too crazy, just some flashing on stage after they received their diploma. Not your typical graduation story. But when you get to the Navy boot camp, they give you a recruit ball cap. After you finish the confidence course in the final days of boot camp, you are given a Navy ball cap, signifying you have completed everything you required to be called a sailor and are no longer a recruit. I found it crazy the amount of, and the diversity of people who wheeled up or flat out cried getting this Navy ball cap. It was enough that I wondered if I was a broken person. Nothing super wild here, but I wrote something along the lines of, wear something that makes you feel pretty. If you want more directions, go for something business casual. When inviting people to my university graduation party, a friend of mine showed up in a child-sized unicorn one-piece. He is pretty big and heavily tattooed, and the onesie covered about half of his hairy legs. Several other friends still remember him as the unicorn guy. My school had everyone practice the graduation ceremony after school for like 3 days straight, so we knew what order we were supposed to be in, where to walk and to stand, and the only special needs kid in our grade still went to wrong way. It was pretty funny, and it's only high school grad, so it's not a big deal. A good friend of mine forged his report cards to show to his dad, who was paying for him to go to school. He did nothing but smoke weed and listen to the Grateful Dead. When it came time for him to graduate, his whole family showed up for the graduation that he wasn't in. His dad was so pissed he disowned my friend. This was in the 90s. Not my mom graduated in the 60s from Friends University, and my uncle showed up to her graduation with a mohawk. Not sure how well that went over in Kansas. Not crazy. But our graduation commencement person was an exceedingly not young individual whose teeth were probably not the ones he used to have. The way the speakers were arranged, we couldn't understand anything he was saying. So it was an hour and a half of fa, 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 ko, fo, 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 fa, fa, punctuated with the weird slurpy. Guy tried to do a backflip. Landed on his face. Had to be helped off the stage. Good times. At my daughter's graduation, at least 9 people fainted from heat. One of them was like 15 years old. EMTs were carting people out on stretchers right and left. The poor graduates were sitting in the center of the football field looking all around like, is this an omen or something? My daughter said they were all side-eyeing, gossiping, and questioning what was going on because the amount of sirens and people being wheeled out. At my college graduation, one of the grads came through the curtain when called, walked to the front of the stage, and danced by himself for however long it took to announce the next 5 people before making his exit across the stage. I found it so rude. I mean, good for him. His family was cheering and having a great time, obviously so proud, but he was a complete distraction from his fellow graduates immediately behind him. One kid did the worm across the stage. The principal was pissed, to say the least. One thing about me is that I'm always going to get a cold the day of a graduation. A dude busting a move and landing in the splits. A graduate's mom jumped off the top of the stadium during Ohio State's graduation ceremony, so that was pretty traumatic.